We are talking about the psychological capital, which forms the basis of the person's strength towards dealing with situations and a component of the emotional intelligence. And we think that the components of psychological capital actually help the individual to overcome the different difficulties he faces. And generally, the psychological capital components are thought to be self-efficacy or the person's ability to believe in himself on what he will be actually able to solve or believe in his own strength in solving problems. And also the positive psychological capital consists of hope, how much a person has the hope to solve or to meet goals, and optimism, and also having the resilience, that is the strength to fight back or try to adapt to adversities or try to overcome the situation in which one is faced in. And also conflict management is thought to be another sort of personal management skill, wherein the characteristics of a conflict are, which is a process which actually is a dynamic process which is dependent on interpersonal interactions and could be solved based on certain blocked goals are present, and these goals or blocked goals are irretrievably, they have to be somewhat be brought under control, and conflict resolution actually helps in trying to overcome the situation and try to bond over the persons and try to achieve the goal. Keeping the goal in mind, the person tries to avoid the interpersonal conflicts and tries to manage the overall situation. For example, we have different types of conflicts, either between the parents or between the parent and the child, or in an organization, etc. Now, we know that we have different types of conflicts. For example, a person may have a conflict inbuilt in his own system, or he may also have a conflict which he may face externally. So it may be both an internal or external process. For example, the types of conflicts, there are approach conflicts, where the approach conflicts means that a person, an individual has to choose between two desirable outcomes. An individual may get selected for two jobs and he has to choose among one of them. This would mean an approach conflict. The individual faces difficulty in trying to make a decision which actually helps him. Sometimes there are avoidance conflict. For example, the student has to complete his assignment, and or if which he may not like, and at the same time, if he does not complete that particular assignment, he may be punished. So he has to avoid the punishment as well as avoid the negative consequences of not doing an assignment. So this is an avoidance approach. Sometimes there are both attractive as well as what we call undesirable consequences for a particular activity. This we call as an approach avoidance conflict, because on one hand, one person may get a job which may be distantly, where he may be distantly placed, and therefore he may not be liking to join that particular job, and that would mean that the goal is both attractive and also there is an unattractive outcome for that. The conflict management techniques are, there are many techniques for managing the conflicts. Either one can compete, that is, one can actually satisfy one's desires at the expense of trying to dissatisfying or creating some sort of unhappiness among others. He may compete to actually gain from such a situation, or he may actually compromise with other person in order to avoid the conflict. These are the conflict management techniques. Sometimes the persons may collaborate with each other so that all parties may work together and try to overcome the situation. Sometimes people tend to postpone, trying to think that the time itself will be able to solve certain problems. Sometimes people try to accommodate other persons, and therefore they try to see that the other person's will is more taken into consideration, and the other person is given a chance, and therefore they subserve their own interest to other person's interest. So these are the 5 types of conflict management. One is, one can actually try to compete and try to override others and try to gain their own goal, or they may collaborate, or they may compromise, or sometimes they avoid the whole situation together in the hope that they may be able to overcome that. And as when time passes, they'll be able to, some result may come, or sometimes they may accommodate the other person. Now, this is conflict management is important in the sense that situations have to be resolved at one point or another, so that the goal setting occurs, as well as persons who are in relationship are able to survive the whole thing. Now, how does one develop the psychological capital? We know that people, in order to have the positive psychological makeup, have to have certain prerequisites. That is, one should be able to understand the pathways of one, how one should lead a life. And this means that they have to set the goal. Also, they have to have mental rehearsals of goal pursuits to the generated pathways. What are the different pathways to achieve the goal, which may be set or which may be seen or may be seen from the others' experiences, and one has to visualize how one is able to pass through all these pathways. Also, may have the approach-oriented goals, like saying, I'll do this by this time, I would like to have this goal achieved, etc. This one may set for oneself. Also, we have sometimes frequent milestones, which when crossed, one can feel encouraged. So also sometimes small groups where people interact, they may also provide a sort of motivation. We know that the hope and optimism and self-efficacy and resilience, all these actually help to overcome certain situations. We know self-efficacy is the belief of the people in themselves on achieving certain things. Now, when one has to have self-efficacy, they should have an expectancy, an outcome expectancy, as the efficacy expectancy, and also based on the past experiences, they may also predict their own success rates. And also when people actually try to do certain things, they try to model others, or social modeling we call it. And when, of course, some is not, all experiences are not positive. So in life, one also has negative consequences of things they do, and they have to reframe them. And the psychological responses have to be in such a way that these negative consequences have to be set aside, and they should form the positive attitudes. Now, when faced with negative consequences, the person is supposed to develop such certain sort of resilience. That is, they should try to understand why they have been upset, why there were certain what we call negative outcomes, or the outcomes which they did not foresee. In such a case, they should be able to understand the reality. They should not feel the effects of the failure, but they should understand that there is something different in the circumstances, or they should try to search for the meanings and try to improvise to solve over the problem, and should go with an optimistic mind. So generally, we know that the psychological capital of the individual is that whole psychological state of evolvement where you think you are processed, you are having certain basic psychological make-up, where you are able to solve the problems with hope, with positivity, and with resilience, and also self-efficacy. Sometimes the positive things, positive outcomes give you positive self-efficacy. Negative outcomes may give you somewhat negative negative understanding of your own efficacy. But then one should try to overcome all these. We know that the conflicts or the failures actually try to impede all such psychological capital, but one should know how to overcome these. And we know that this internal psychological capital, which is fixed, is very important for persons by actually trying to help the individual bear a sense of achievement. And now this skill can be improved by learning, practicing, and also using resolving techniques and strategies. Now, when we are able to understand the psychological competencies in the sense that an emotional intelligence and the psychological capital tend to be improved upon. Also, we are talking now about the psycho-cybernetics concept. Cybernetics means a term where you try to steer your mind to a productive, useful goal. Now, when people try to actually motivate themselves for positive actions, now that is called as psycho-cybernetics. We are using our psychological being for achieving something. Maxwell Maltz is a person who has proposed about the psychological psychocybernetics. Here he says that through emotional surgery, we can have a dynamic self-image and self-esteem, and we can achieve success and happiness in life. So we should what we call desensitize or dehypnotize ourselves from false beliefs and celebrate one's freedom, and one should be free from fear and guilt, because these are the negative feelings which actually inhibit the persons to do from doing positive things in life. So the self-image of a person actually helps. It is the key to the human personality and how one perceives oneself, and this self-image can actually help the individual to accomplish something, and it delimits the boundaries, and the person is able to explore himself in the external world by having a positive image of himself. And he's also able to go to the areas of, from the possible areas to impossible areas by applying his will. Now, psychocybernetics also explores the power of positive thinking and how it works well. Now, we know that the self-image can be changed only by experience. We should accept ourselves as human beings, and we know that we have our own self-worth. One should perceive one's own self, and one experiences, one actually records in the brain how he perceives himself, and he puts himself to certain action. Also, having mental visualization and self-affirmation actually helps every man to be successful, and driving to for being successful helps satisfaction, and this satisfaction gives happiness and fulfillment. So the mental portrait of a person, how he feels about himself, and based on the past experience, actually, we also try to have certain negative images, but one should overcome these and behave in a way that who they feel they are. So every human being has an innate potential for greatness, and when these capacities are unleashed, we can find the human beings can feel happy and able and successful. Now, what are the tips for cybernetics? Every human being should be able to imagine himself, think of himself in the positive role, and take time to relax. Rushing over things or being overburdened, and not being able to give oneself certain time to think over things, all this may actually impede that human being from attaining certain things. One should take time to relax in life. One should be able to meditate and think peacefully. And if there are past failures, one should be able to take them in a proper perspective and forget about them, and let the success mechanisms, whatever one has achieved, let them do the work, and also be willing to learn. Mostly, people should be happy in whatever they are trying to do, and it is a mental frame of mind. Also, we should have the ability to deal with both success and failures. The success mechanism is we should have the sense of direction, understanding how the success has come, and courage to understand and accept success when it comes. They should have the charity that also other people should be given credit when necessary, or one should hold oneself in self-esteem and also respect others. One should have the confidence about oneself and also be assured about their activities. Now, these sort of things actually help the individual to have success and to deal with success. Whereas the failure mechanisms, generally we see when individuals fail, they have these sort of, they face the negative consequences both on physically and psychologically. They have this sense of frustration, and they tend to be aggressive because they are not able to get something done, and they have the insecure feelings. They do not feel secure in the social settings. Most often this results in a sense of loneliness and uncertainty of dealing with things. Now, this also results in resentment towards individuals as well as organizations, and a sense of emptiness in the individuals because they try to stay away from these other peoples or other organizations. Now we know that our mind is the most valuable thing that one has, and Mars recommends we have to change your attitude sometimes towards ourselves and how we are dealing with things and how we appear. That is, mostly this it develops by having a positive attitude towards ourselves, and we should try to relax and visualize, and also have what we call positive relationships where we can interact with other people and gain insights from other people, discourses with other people, and we should try to change our negative habits and see that today's all the problems, whatever you're getting, can be solved. So the positive frame of mind helps both the mind and body, and this helps basically because the man or the woman himself, they are trying to change the mental image, and they are perceiving themselves as arbitrators of their own fate, and they would like to change things. And this sort of positive mental framework actually helps the individuals to be in a better frame of happiness. Now, developing the habits of positive thinking, they do not come in a way. People have to make certain efforts. People can either go for meditation for a few peaceful moments on whatever is there around. They should be have the mindfulness to live in the present and be associated with positive thinking. Or writing a journal or writing your thoughts out also may help you to relax actually sometimes. Sometimes it's exercise or playing or having pets. These sort of what we call techniques actually help the individual to develop positive thinking. Also, one should have the ability to forgive others. This actually helps the individual to go in a positive frame of mind. Now, self-sufficiency or performance efficiency is when actually some individuals are expected to perform well. Also, we have the idea of the performance state. The ideal performance state is one when actually you are full of energy, and the body, mind, emotion, spirit, and creativity are all together. Then in such a state of idea performance state, one can actually try to get certain things done. Now, the person who has this ideal performance state is completely energized with positive emotions, in his fun and enjoyable, and he was also focused on what we call trying to get things done with a calm and relaxed manner, and also he maintains and effuses, he has an effusive personality where he exhibits all the confidence. Now, this sort of ideal performance state actually is because of the connection between the emotion and the internal psychological or the state, as well as internal physical chemistry. We know that the persons who have the positive framework of mind, they also have the better physical coordination. Also, the psychological mechanisms are the founders, we can say, foundations of the psychomotor performance. Psychomotor or skill performance is exhibited only when the mind or emotions are in control. Also, we have that the spiritual dimension, where how deeper your values are about a system or the purposes your one is clear about, the person may also go about his activities with an energy which is not seen in persons who do not have understand the significance or the values associated with a particular activity. The high performance pyramid means that the person should have the physical capacity, the emotional capacity to deal with certain things, and the mental or the IQ capacity with which one is associated with the knowledge and the skills and the other attributes or understanding about a particular subject, and also the spiritual capacity, that is understanding things in all their significance. Now, having idealism and having high purpose, seeing a high purpose of life is one such spiritual quality. Generally, when we say a person has high performance efficiency, he means he is showing his best capabilities to the best degree possible, and he is doing certain things in such a way that it is only the right way, and the services are delivered in such a way that they are completely right for that particular situation. Now, the psychological momentum is that which actually helps a person to change his behavior or performance. Now, this means a person is made more efficient by completing all the tasks successfully and also very fast. Now, this efficiency principle means that whatever task people undertake, the perception of the psychological momentum actually develops their confidence and competence, leading to heightened expectations. And also, we can see that the tasks are completed very well, and the increased perception of a positive psychological momentum actually helps in greater success of the task. So we know that the ability is not something which is very accidental, but it is not an independent thing, but it is dependent on a number of skills which are deliberately practiced, and this builds an initial or internal ability which actually is seen as the psychological competency or psychological efficiency, or we call the psychological momentum model. Also, we know certain things are able, people are able to do certain things very well and in very short time. This means that they have more processing. This processing efficiency theory tells that people can do things with effectively over a particular time. But this also means that the processing resources should be there. These processing resources are cultivated over time. So we talk about the processing efficiency in the sense that the performance effectiveness of an activity depends on the what actually has been done. That is, we can say the processing effectiveness divided by all the processing resources can be called as processing efficiency. And this processing efficiency means that even anxiety can have a role in how effectively we do certain things. For example, if a person is anxious, then this affects the processing efficiency. The performance may be done, but how efficiently it is done also varies. So anxiety has a role on how people do certain things. So how efficiently a person does certain things also depends on how fast he's able to grasp certain things, how fast he's able to do certain things, and also how effectively or how well the work is done. Now, this also depends that the person should not be anxious nor be fearsome, but he should be using his psychological capital to the utmost possible extent in the limited time given. And this means that all his psychological, mental, and other capabilities are to be geared to the right extent to the right time. Now, we can say that the psychocybernetics is the term which means steering your mind to a productive, useful goal so that one can get the peace of mind of and also happiness in achieving certain things. And successful peoples actually try to go on improving their lifestyle or their abilities, and they also try to develop the techniques of dealing with certain things. The positive thinking is a mental attitude which gives the favorable results, and also we can have peak performances from such people. So we have been dealing with the psychocybernetics and the psychological capital. At the same time, there are certain things, in spite of whatever activities a person may be involved in, we know that at some point of time, this also leads to certain stresses. So one should understand, besides having the internal abilities of the cognitive abilities and the psychosocial abilities, one should also concentrate on developing oneself, which is dealt under the block, the stress management or the personal development. In the personal development, how one person develops, we have this particular unit called as the stress management. The stress management says that every individual is prone to stress in whatever activities he is undertakes daily, and effective management of the stress actually deals trying to overcome the situations and being able to solve or achieve one's goal in the time set. Now, we know that stress management is required because over stress can actually have some physical as well as psychological effects on the individual, which may actually hamper that individual from successful living or career opportunities. Also, we know that how we organize, how we plan our time, how we plan our activities, and what effective time management techniques we use, as well as how well we are able to manage people, all have a bearing on this stress management. We know that people expect certain stress, and it is a subjective phenomenon in the sense that each individual has a different way of getting stressed. And we people may sometimes feel stressed because the reality they face may be different from their own expectations. And actually, Lehlu says that the experiences of being subjected to physical, mental, or emotional strain in response to real or sometimes imagined stimuli is known as stress. Real situations may actually cause stress. At the same time, people may have a fear from their expectations or from previous or past experiences, and therefore this also may cause some sort of behavior which is dependent on those expectations, and this may actually cause stress. And we know that stress, although maybe in limited sense, may actually result or propel the individual to do certain things. In extreme cases, the stress is debilitating or it may actually harm the person. We know because of the tension that individual faces, because of the extraordinary demands, constraints, or opportunities that are present in the environment can actually be causing stress and make the person psychologically or physically somewhat feel he may unease, or he may be at he may be completely stressed or not able to deal with certain ordinary day-to-day things also. Now, we know that the stress is experienced by individuals, and there's a discrepancy between the physical and the psychological demands of the situation. And we know that the biological, psychological, or social resources that the individual has are not able to cope up with the situation. So here, the person may feel the burden, and therefore this may actually cause some biological or psychological or social sort of behavior, how they behave. These sort of disturbances can be seen. Now, how an individual perceives environmental demands may actually help him, his depending on his or her adaptive capacity, may actually help the individual to a certain extent or may actually tax them. It is, the stress is used here in the negative context, in the sense we talk about both eustress and de-stress. Eustress helps the individual to cope to a certain extent, but the distress may actually have a harmful effect on the psychological setup as well as the physical setup of the human being. Now, one does actually, what does stress management mean in such a case? Avoiding or escaping the pressures and turbulences of modern living is can be called as stress management. But we know we also should understand how our body reacts to particular stresses, and also how to develop skills which actually enhances our body's adjustment. And we should be able to take our mind through a particular ways of thinking, and also changing one's thoughts and emotions and lifestyles, and also with personal problems, which is actually helpful to the individual rather than succumbing to the situation. Now, stress management uses a variety of techniques and psychotherapeutics which actually help the individual to deal effectively with the situation. It also helps tells us about certain basic practices an individual can practice so that it will lessen the stress on him and also help him to relax. Now, relaxation response is a physical state of deep rest, and this also helps to have a proper physical and emotional response to others or to the stress. And we know that there is a flight or fight mechanism in the body itself, and our hormones also help. But at the same time, we should know how to harness our physical body to cope up with the stress. Now, we have both the short-term and long-term stress management techniques. There are physical, for the short-term stress management, there are physical relaxation methods like exercising, going for a walk, because a healthy body is able to actually absorb the stress or is able to cope up with the stress, whereas with compared to an unhealthy body or a person who has unhealthy practices. It's also known that our body produces beta endorphins, which have a positive effect on how we feel, how relaxed we feel, how happy we feel. And these exercises can also give rise to these beta endorphins, and therefore they actually help the body to be relaxed. So all the muscles can be made relaxed due to exercise, and also all the tight connective tissues can be relaxed. Now, exercise is such a form or is a physical stress relaxing mechanism. Having a deep breathing and focusing on one's breath, and so that lots of oxygen go inside the body, can also be a stress relief mechanism. But then we can also have progressive muscular relaxation technique where one stretches and again relaxes his muscles. One is able to actually try to contract and relax one's muscles, and therefore he is able to have certain these muscular contractions actually help the body to relax a bit. Now, this awareness as well as the stress management about how having that one is when one is faced with the stress, one should have try to relax one's brain. We understand that when we are faced with stress, we can also go for the relaxation mechanisms, which are like guided imagery. When one imagines one is at a peaceful place or in a beautiful garden, and when one is actually traveling through the path, when one tries to imagine the situations where one is comfortable with, or one when he is happy or about his childhood memories, these sort of things actually help the individual to overcome the stress. This is known as a visualization or guided imagery therapy. Also, sometimes one should try to live in the moment, mindfulness. Instead of trying to ruminate over stressful situation, one may live in the moment and try to understand or try to get on with the immediate activity in one which is placed in. And this sort of things actually help the individual to relax. Sometimes a problem shared is a problem harmed. Therefore, one can share with friends or one with whom he may or she may feel close, and this sort of ventilation of feelings helps the individual to become relaxed. Also, there are diversion and distraction techniques like going to a movie or going to a picnic or going to some short visit to some other places, or trying to having a break and going to some other place or vacation, and this actually helps the individual to relax. These are the short-term stress management, but when we know that the stress is inbuilt and it is causing lots of havoc, then one should also try to understand the long-term stress management. And this means having certain positive habits inculcated in our own lifestyle, which we practice every day, so that these can have benefit effects on the body as well as the mind. One of the things that one can try to learn is time management. Time management, when one learns to prioritize is the things one should do, and he organizes one's things and also understands that one should be able to cope up properly with the problems and monitor his activities, and this can also relax the person and try to solve the stress. We know that time management is very important because time, everybody has a limited time, and it is a problem mostly with how one manages one's time that actually leads to stress. When a person has a limited time and is surrounded with innumerable activities, ultimately the person does not know how to go about it. He prioritizes certain less important things over the most important things, and therefore is unable to manage time, and therefore he feels stressed. So when one has to get organized, one has to self-monitor, and also has to have the cognitive restructuring of what is important and what understanding about oneself and about people, and have try to forego the negative thoughts and try to construct mentally what actually is important to one. And also, one person, when they are stressed, also should look for social support mechanisms based on which they can obtain, that is friends, social circles, based on which they can also get some sort of support which can actually relieve the stress. The time management, if we were to consider, is an important part of personal management too, in the sense that the person, when he manages time, is able to manage himself. So with effective planning and setting goals and priorities and setting deadlines, and also trying to prioritize tasks and setting the right activity and the right time for the right activity, and also delegating responsibilities to others, these are certain ways of managing the time. One should not try to do all things by oneself, but should delegate to others. That does not mean going away from the problem, but trying to actually understand and giving other things to other persons, either in organizations or at home, where cooperation is the key to success. Now, the advantages of time management is it reduces the stress levels, the work-life balance is better, There is increased focus on the work at the or the activity at hand, and we know that we no longer try to postpone things because we know their importance, and we have fewer distraction and more energy. So one should understand the important aspect of the time management. Another important aspect is people management. People management is also important in the sense that one should be able to handle interpersonal conflicts well and also manage deadlines. In organizations, is the conflicts can be a cause of actually the organizational sickness or the organization is not doing well. In such a case, the people, how they act with each other, the rapport between people and the company culture or the organizational culture can be the key of getting certain goals or certain priorities, what we call cleared. Now we know that the people also, the leaders should have this, or the people should have this people management skills in the sense that everybody should feel empowered to do certain things. Now, new skills have to be taught, people have to be more productive and also be available, and also there should be standard processes. All these happen when the employees are interested, and the leader or the person who manages these people also should try to see that these works are delegated, works are effectively delegated, and also the people have the enough skills to do the jobs, and if not, they should be trained. People should be encouraged, people should be given feedback, and people should be supported when given the challenging tasks. Such sort of a climate can actually help the individuals to fare well. And for essentially for people management skills, people, we are supposed to listen well to the other person, and if there are any conflicts, they should be resolved at the earliest. Also, one should be accommodative of other persons. We should be flexible in our attitudes and then not strict to rules very rigidly, rather than depend on the situation, the person's abilities. We should be a bit flexible. Also, patience is another important organization or people management skill, in the sense when people, all people are not able to the same extent, and sometimes they need to be retold about how they have to get a single process or work done. And one should be able to provide guidance compulsorily to the person time and again if required in clear terms. And here the concept of the clear communication comes in hand. One should be able to tell one's ideas clearly or the directions precisely in how one should be able to do certain things, brainstorming for ideas, and also telling clearly, communicating, and positive communication, clarification of doubts from the subordinates, and confirming from each members whether they have understood the concept or not. These are certain items by which we are able to tell the message clearly to the persons working, and here by this we are able to manage people well. And also, trust is the most important thing. The trust between the employers and employees. The leaders should be able to trust the workers in the sense that they will be able to get certain things done. And likewise, the employees should also be able to trust their leader. So in an organizational climate, also, what sort of or how disciplined one is, or how one actually tries to improve the organizational climate is also another aspect of people management skills. It is because it's not only people, but the organizational climate that needs to be improved. And this means responding properly to mails, or having an activity calendar, or trying to run meetings effectively that discusses information, and also assigning to team members according to their abilities, etc. Now, all these sort of things also actually help the work made easy, at the same time a sort of a collaborative atmosphere in the organization. And when we know that leadership development actually takes place, it is not merely by study that one is becomes a leader. Of course, the training helps, but then the leadership efforts means we have the leadership development programs where the people are provided with opportunities for increasing knowledge and skills and for exercising leadership when presented with challenges. Now, we should not think the leadership management is something like management training. We know that the managers become good leaders, but sometimes leadership is an essential part of good managing skills. But it's more than managing skills, it's another human dimension. Not only doing things right, but doing the right things. It is not how we do things, how well we do things, but it is also along with how well we do things, with why we do things. That is the concept, the whole idea also becomes important. It's beyond this, is also values, what a person values and cherishes most, and what he tries to bring with his followers. That also is known as the leadership training. And leaders are not born in a day. We know that the methods of the leadership development are, we may have the formal training, or we can develop them on the jobs. At the same time, we can ask them to develop based on the feedback. We know a leader must accept feedback and be open and willing to make changes in his policies, as well as how he operates. Also, there are coaches who actually help the leaders gain a one-on-one relationship with, they help the persons gain important lessons through assessment, challenges, and supports. Sometimes leaders are not provided with any of these trainings, and they are actually people who direct themselves to become leaders. This is known as self-directed leadership. And sometimes the people are given interdepartmental or cross-level type of assignments, by which people become aware of the other persons or the other departmental issues, and this also actually imbibes in them the leadership skills. So we talk about the effective stress management in the sense that one should be able to deal with people as well as with time in the limited time, and face or overcome the challenges one faces in life, or accomplish the task in a positive manner. Of course, one faces different difficult situations in one's life at organizations or in social climate, but this means that one should has to evolve and take time to develop certain skills, especially new skills, and receive feedback and act on such feedback, and one should be able to understand the importance of the time. Now, there is a particular concept known as mindfulness, which actually helps the individuals to be happy. The concept of mindfulness is that people should be not overpowered by stress or anxiety or depression, but we should try to understand the things in a impersonal and detached way. We can understand things by equanimity, that is being peaceful, and also having self-control and composure, and also impermanence in the sense that, oh, nothing is permanent in this life and everything is only temporary. When we understand, we have such a view, we know that we are able to recognize and slow down our behavior and see situations more clearly, and try to achieve balance and resilience at work as well as at home. And then we have the reduced symptoms of depression and anxiety. And this actually helps to improve the memory, focus, and also the processing speed. And this improved ability helps to avoid situation of stress and have greater functional relationships. Now, whatever energy we have need not be spent on negative way, or on ruminating, or trying to think over certain things again and again. But we have the ability now to manage oneself and become more creative and more adaptive and more relaxed. Now, the formal mindfulness theory has helped the people, especially the mindfulness-based cognitive therapy has helped the people from depression as well as anxiety. And whereas mindfulness-based stress reduction techniques have helped the people to understand the reasons for their stress and overcome them. Now, mindfulness actually helped. There were certain studies where it says that mental health problems of people were solved, and the complex mental problems such as psychosis or bipolar disorder can be actually be controlled to a certain extent, in the sense that people are mindful of how they are behaving in certain circumstances and are able to actually control their impulses. And this has helped to solve certain mental health problems. Now, how does this mindfulness work? One has to sit and understand how one's thoughts come and go, but then they have to let these thoughts, negative thoughts, go, and understand the tension and anxiety can be felt in the body. For example, when you're stressed out, we can see a faster heart rate, or somehow the symptoms of having sweating, or any other physical symptoms which are manifest. And understanding these symptoms as well as how our thoughts are working, and creating the space and trying to let go and not think those thoughts but staying in the moment, that is what is mindfulness. The mindfulness exercise is a state of mind where people try to overcome the situation by going for mindful breathing, or trying to have a proper body scan, in the sense that we can try to pay close attention to the physical sensations throughout the body, right from the feet, moving through the arms, legs, groin, abdomen, chest, and also back, shoulders, arms, hands, and neck and face, spending few minutes on each part of the body and seeing how they are reacting to particular stress, and seeing that they are relaxed, and also paying mindful observation to nature or natural environment in relaxing the moment, actually are parts or components of mindfulness. Sometimes understanding the touch points, you touch something, you touch a book, touch a door, touch a plant, and we understand the physical sensation and the worthiness. And this also gives that the blessed daily activity and resting in awareness actually helps you to relax a bit. Sometimes it is the music, the mindful listening to music, getting relaxed and being lost in the waves of the music, as well as listening to the natural sounds or sounds in the nature like birds, voices, and all these things actually help to be relaxed. And one should actually experience a full routine of how one goes through one's routine throughout the day. And this also helps in mindfulness observation of oneself. Sometimes one plays a game of fives, understanding, for example, write down the things actually which you are usually are going unnoticed or unappreciated by oneself in one's life. If we note down those things which we actually appreciate and which are going in our lives, maybe this gives a better framework of mind. Now, we should also try to think whether what things we do are benefiting us or our people's lives around us, and actually do we know how these look or sound. Have we gone into the intricate details and noticed them in particular? And how can life be without these things, and how these things actually bring us happiness? Now this creates the creativity and explores we explore the nature or the surroundings around us, and this is actually a way of lessening our stress and anxiety and difficult and painful and frightening thoughts and feelings and sensations. Those can be overcome. So wow, mind is like a monkey which persistently jumps or leaps from idea to idea, and we have to bring these thoughts into control. And by having the control, by not deliberately trying to punish it, but at the same time being relaxed way, this is what mindfulness helps in. With this, mindfulness has had its roots in Hinduism as well as Buddhism, but this concept is also seen in either say Judaism, Christianity, Islam, and these sort of religions also have taught about mindfulness. The Hindu or the Eastern type of mindfulness talks about completely relaxing and inactivity, whereas the Western type of mindfulness talks about dealing or doing an activity like stitching or getting involved in something which actually is a perpetual, continuous activity or physical activity, which actually helps the individual to forget about the stress. Actually, both these techniques are valuable. And of course, we have got the Buddhist perspective, that is, the right mindfulness comes from right thinking, right understanding, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, and right concentration. Now, we know that the mindfulness is understanding the state of mind, and both the Western type of meditative, the Eastern type of meditation, as well as the Western type of getting involved in activity, both these have active benefits on the human being. Also, we can have the pro-social behavior, which again is a cultivated behavior. The pro-social behavior tries to depend on these facts. That is, one can share what one has, one can help others, and one can live in cooperative attitude. Now, we know that the altruism or trying to help others can actually benefit the individuals, in the sense that persons whoever have achieved either fame or recognition or money, they try to become more pro-social. Pro-social is dependent on certain economic or social factors. And we know that it is used somewhat, pro-social behavior is often used interchangeably with altruism and benevolence. Altruism is coined by the sociologist Auguste Comte, who talks about acts of selfless assistance to other. Benevolence means it's an action intended to benefit another, but not with seeking any reward or recognition for the same act. Now, this pro-social behavior can be of several types, and Carlo and Brundle have said there are several types of different types of pro-social behavior, which are dependent on personal and situational factors. For example, you can have the pro-social behavior in which one person voluntarily helps others, especially people who are rich enough try to give certain funding, major funding to other persons for improving the certain physical ailments, or trying to give funds for cancer treatment, etc. Now, these are called as the altruistic behaviors, where they are trying to help the others. Then there is compliant behavior, in which one person helps the other because he feels that by doing such what one is asked, he's actually helping the other. The emotional or the social behavior is one where one has an emotionally evocative circumstances, and feeling the pity or empathy, a person tries to actually help the others through processing the emotion internally. This is a pro-social moral reasoning undergone by the person, and he tries to help out the other people. Sometimes there is anonymous sort of pro-social behavior where a person helps the other person without getting any name for the or fame for the act. Sometimes there is a dire social behavior, the pro-social behavior, in the sense that people are forced to help because of the crisis or emergency. People are supposed to come out and help others. There is also public pro-social behavior where people, because of the public audience or the potential for gaining respect and approval, they try to show certain pro-social behavior. Now, this pro-social behavior stems from the fact that the individuals believe in empathy, and also feel that the world is a just one and everybody should be given an opportunity, and we live in a socially responsible world, and there should be an internal locus of control. That is, we can choose how outcomes are obtained. That is, good deeds lead to good outcomes and bad deeds lead to bad outcomes. So in order to minimize bad ones, one tries to have the pro-social behavior. Also, we know that the altruistic people, they tend to be less self-absorbed and less egocentric, and they try to help out others. Also, there are factors influencing the pro-social behavior. The pro-social behavior is shown for people who are more attractive than less attractive people. Also, depending on the similarity of the kinship or the religious backgrounds, or identifying with the victims, and also understanding that the positive feedback or friends influence, and the genders belonging to the same gender, and the personality, and depending on one's mood, one may actually show the pro-social behavior. Now, we have understood here that the mindfulness and the pro-social behavior, the mindfulness helps the individual to be able to solve the stress and also live in the situation, cope effectively with the challenges. Whereas a pro-social behavior talks about the voluntary actions an individual goes undertakes actually specifically they are actually intended to benefit the person as well as improve the well-being of the group of the individuals. Now, we'll also be dealing very shortly with the personal etiquette aspects. There is this chapter on personal development where a person has to focus on the aspects of confidence, credibility, interaction with others, leading and motivating, having curiosity, and having enough communication skills. And the personal development should be a major part of oneself. One should try to face some fears of their own. They should be able to live well, learn something new, and find a mentor and reflect on one's own self and be curious about life and about work, and also build one social network, and also go for internal personal development aspects like meditation. Nowadays, because of the organizational work or individual work, etiquette, how a person behaves in social settings or professionally, that has also been important. How one meets people, how one actually dines and uses the telephone, and how one actually has the table manners and corresponds and answers like mails or response to cell phones, and how they use the cell phones at work, and how they use the phones and mails. All these form the basis of the etiquette. Now, etiquette is very important because here nowadays we are dealing with multinational organizations. The work climate or the work organization climate has changed much, where the persons, in order to accept or to communicate well, etiquette also forms a part of communicating. And if we are not able to deal or bring ourselves properly or with proper etiquette, it's a possibility that the communication between organizations can go down. Also, there are certain psychological competencies like self-analysis, where we try to evaluate ourselves, our strengths and weaknesses, our major problems and challenges, our drawbacks and future career plans, and develop in areas in which one lacks. And this self-analysis can be done through various measures, but then we can talk in detail about Johari window. Johari window is an effective technique for individual as well as group counseling. It is created by two psychologists, Joseph Luft and Harry Ingham, to help people better understand the relationship with themselves as well as with others. We know that we have in this window, there are 4 boxes actually, which actually talk about 4 arenas. That is, there are certain areas in which we are, we know what we are in the public knows. This is known as the arena. Also, maybe we are known to ourselves, but there are maybe certain aspects of ourselves not known to public. That is the blind spot. Also, we know have certain innate capabilities and capacities, but we do not share those feelings or thoughts or ideas, and this becomes the mask. This is a private aspect. Our unconscious aspect is one other window where a person does not know what he has and the other persons also do not have. So basically in the 4 boxes or the 4 squares, we talk about the arena where it is a public exposure, blind spot where the other public know, but we do not know by ourselves, our innate abilities or our mistakes or our failings. And there's a mask where we try to cover up the things, what we know, our feelings, etc. And there's the unconscious aspect. Now, this description of Johari window says that there's an open self, the blind self in which we are not knowing, or we others perceive the individual, but the person is not knowing how the others are perceiving him. There is a hidden self that where people consciously try to obliterate, or they try to not show others what their own inner feelings are. And there is an unknown self which actually can be developed. So depending on the area, one can also understand the effectiveness of dealing with others, understand the cordial relationships. We can develop communication, monitor oneself. Now, this is a dynamic model which has been changed again, but at the same time, this also talks about the open self, where one speaks out his feelings and the public also knows. The opaque self, where one does not know about himself but others know. And the protected self, where one tries to mask himself, and the unknown self. Now, these 4 quadrants actually help make us know that one change in one quadrant will affect the other quadrants. So we can also deny or blind to our own behaviors, or we can try to improve ourselves. So this helps in awareness, and trust also can increase awareness. And this exposure to ideas of what we do not know helps us to develop ourselves. And smaller the first quadrant, the poorer the communication. And also we know there is an unknown area, and people are not knowing this unknown area, although we are curious because we are held by custom, social training, and diverse fears. And sensitivity training means trying to appreciate the hidden aspects of behavior of other person, and not trying to probe, but trying to respect the desires of others to keep secret what is sacred to them. So the value system of a group or its membership can be understood by this sort of Johari window. Also, we have the SWOT analysis, where a person tries to determine his strengths, weaknesses, and also opportunities and threats. Understanding all the strengths, weaknesses, and trying what are the threats in a situation helps the person to determine the outcomes. Now, when we try to understand what we want with what the outcomes are matching up, we can take the follow-up action, and this helps in the individual development. Finally, we come to the psychological tests in life skills training. There are several psychological tests developed The use of these psychological tests actually help the individuals to assess to what level the individual is able to gain what we call a skill in a particular area, and they help in the professionally for an appropriate intervention program, as well as where people can benefit by certain trainings, or they may also help in undertaking what we call personal inventory, as well as help in employment, where people are subjected to these tests and given job opportunities. For example, we have got the social competency scale, the emotional competencies scale developed by Sharma and others. And these help us to understand the adequate depth of feeling. For example, the emotional competence help people to understand what sort of depth of feeling a person has, whether he is able to express himself or control his emotions, and when he is able to deal effectively with one's own emotions, and how he is able to cope with problem emotions, and how he encourages the positive emotions. Likewise, we have got the 5-point Likert scale, where the coefficient 0.76 and the validity coefficient of 0.69 helps the individual to cope up. The life skills educational training package by Murthy and Rao and others factual packages actually have numerous skills based on different aspects like decision making, problem solving, creative thinking, critical thinking, and also effective communication, interpersonal relationships, self-awareness, empathy, coping with emotions, and coping with stress. Now, all these sort of stress scales, these scales help the individuals to understand what sort of on what how they stand on the scale, and this helps to us assess the person's life skills as well as the stress levels in the individuals. Now we should know the essential life skills are the skills which you have been talking again and again, and these life skills are important in organizations also. The World Health Organization talks about the communication as well as interpersonal skills and the decision making and problem solving skills, and also it talks about what we call the creative thinking and critical thinking skills, and self-awareness and empathy and other skills which are a part of emotional intelligence aspect, and assertiveness and equanimity and self-control and resilience and ability to cope up with problems. Now we know all these personal skills are not obtained in a day, but the esteem, the self-confidence, they take time, and they have to overcome the stress which you may initially be seen with certain things, and then they have to overcome all these by and see that they achieve the full potential. Now, parenting is one way of trying to nourish the skills, and another is having the coaching or mentoring. Now, there are very much tools for assessment and training programs for the life skills, and the training does improve the life skills, and it helps in developing what we call resilience, overcoming adversities, and also managing money, time, and emotions and relationships. And good communication skills also help the person develop what we call good interrelationships. Now, all these aspects develop the ability based on the ability and the willingness to learn. And all these emotional competencies can enable a person for growth as well as personal satisfaction. Now, we do talk about some of the socio-technological changes that are occurring in our environment, and are both positive and negative effects of technology. We know that Albert Bandura said the TV exposure can result in violence, and addiction to online gaming and social media can also result in cyberbullying and identity theft. And all these, besides these aspects, the social media is which is designed to bring people together, may be having the opposite effect, in the sense that the people are more what we call aware of the diversities, and they're trying to copy others, and social modeling is occurring on another scale. And the for happiness, what that is which is actually inbuilt, is now replaced with popularity, and the spending is extending because of the social and other media. Also, there are the physical effects where the eyes and the body gets strained, and the impact on children behavior is seen. And now, to alleviate these impacts on socio-technology, which are causing certain psychological and physical issues, we should try to control our own screen time or mobile time, and see that the children's screen time is also controlled. There are cultural differences that are seen. We are becoming more aware of the cultural differences, because the world has become the simple global village, and there are certain views which says that the strategies to ignore or minimize differences is not thinking ours is the only culture that is more appropriate, or trying to understand that is our only, we are centered around our own ethnicity, but trying to be synergistic. We should understand that there are different communication styles, and also people are neither, should be try to be linear instead of being circular, and direct instead of indirect, and should be detached instead of attached, and there should be concrete ideas instead of abstract ideas, and people should actively listen to others and have empathy and be tolerant, and all these aspects understand make you actually be pro-social as well as try to get along with other cultures. Because nowadays, because of the migration, which is both geographic and globalization, and because of the multinational corporations, now we find that the people are going across the countries, and assimilation is a process. Sometimes people face problems because they go into other countries. They have both the psychological problems that are faced by them. Now, assimilation is a process by which in a new country, the immigrant groups are encouraged through social and cultural practices to adopt the cultural values of the particular country. But sometimes this cultural assimilation is not seen, and one may face a cultural shock. So because of the impact of the migration, there are both positive impacts, that is economical and social, also negative impacts, where the people from the rural areas are not able to stay well in the urban or in, say, other countries. And because of the pressures that are put on the natural resources, because of the increasing human population, there are no chances except to migrate sometimes because of the job opportunities. And one should try to develop certain psychosocial skills as well as communication skills in order to overcome certain problems. And we have to see that the migrants, whoever comes to our country, they are not subjected to prejudice or bias. And we should develop this contact theory, where when people are having threat, having more personal contact with migrants can actually help in cultural developing cultural sensitivity instead of making them culturally marginalized. Occupational choices also help. We know that the economic factors and the education and the psychological factors are helping the people to migrate, and most of the personal development like communication, interpersonal problem solving, confidence, adaptability, work ethics, leaderships, all these help the person to develop wherever he is, either in India or in other countries. So personal and social skills are very important in the sense that the individual who is equipped with such skills is able to overcome these problems where in whatever society is faced. Now the person is an individual has become more universal, and he's subjected to more socio-technological changes as well as his occupational changes, and all these are giving an impact on the individual. And the psychology of the person and the competencies of the person should be such that he is able to face whatever challenges he faces in his life and overcome them and leave them in the positive frame of mind. Now we have dealt briefly with the life skills, the psychosocial competencies, and the personal management and assessment. Some of the questions that will be faced, you'll be getting are based on the life skills. Some questions may come on the cognitive skills and the psychosocial skills and personal development, and the psychological capital and psycho-cybernetics. Mindfulness and personal development aspects, as well as the psychological tests and enhancing psychological competencies. These are the ways on which the questions may be faced. So we have dealt now completely with the psychological competencies. Please do go through the textbook, and in case of any doubts, please contact the department. Thank you so much.